On her birthday, Sue Muran only wanted one warm meal and one sincere wish. Instead, her boyfriend sent her a payment request for half the dinner. Every gift had a receipt. Every act of care came with a price. Even love, to him, had to be split down to the last cent. So, when another man appeared in the rain and returned her umbrella without asking for anything in return, she finally realized the most painful bill was not the one on the table. It was the one her heart had been paying for years.
The Bill Beneath the Rain. Chapter 1. The Hot Pot Restaurant on Pinghai Road. Early winter in Hangzhou. Rain hung from the awnings of Pinghai Road in threads as fine as silk. Su Muran stood outside the Chongqing Hot Pot restaurant she had booked 3 days earlier, both arms around a canvas bag filled with design drafts. Her eyes followed the electric scooters as they skimmed through the puddles. It was her 26th birthday. She wore a cream coat bought during an end-of-season sale, with a pale blue knit dress underneath. The collar still carried the faint scent of the laundry softener from her small rented room near Gongchen Bridge. She had told herself that today she would not be sad about work, would not mention the rent that had just gone up, would not calculate how much of this month's salary remained after sending home to her mother. If there was a hot meal and one sincere birthday wish, she would feel that the beginning of another year was not so lonely. Chen Si-yon arrived 40 minutes late. He pushed through the glass door, shook rain from his black umbrella, and looked as if the entire city had inconvenienced him. Muran stood and waved. The smile just forming on her face stalled when he glanced at his watch and said, "Traffic. Have you ordered? Don't order the marbled beef. It's 12 yuan more here today than on the app." His first words were not an apology, and they were not happy birthday. Muran still pulled out his chair and said, "I waited for you, so we haven't ordered. We can just get the regular set for 2. Chen Si-yon opened an app, compared each set meal, and used a pen from the table to circle items on the menu. He worked in a finance company, and the habit of reading numbers had soaked into every meal. After 2 years together, Muran had grown used to seeing him split bills down to the last mile. She had grown used to him saving photos of receipts in a folder named Dating Expenses. In the beginning, she had laughed and thought a man who knew how to calculate would know how to prepare for the future. He said money did not grow on trees, and grown adults had to be fair. She had once believed that fairness was the foundation of a shared life. But the longer they stayed together, the more that fairness resembled a scale placed between them, a scale on which affection always weighed less than a coin. The hot pot boiled in its 2-flavor pot. Steam fogged Si-yon's glasses. Muran handed him a tissue. He took it without looking up, still murmuring, "Soup base 38, pork 29, vegetables 16, potato noodles 8, total before discount 127. I have a 20 yuan coupon, so after the discount is 107. I ate the spicy side and you ate the mild side. Splitting the soup base evenly is not entirely reasonable." He said it with such seriousness that she did not know whether to cry or laugh. Muran bit into a strand of enoki mushroom, the spice rushing into her eyes. She remembered the previous month when she had a fever and needed an IV. Chen Si-yon came to the hospital with porridge. He placed the container on the table and then sent her a message. "Pumpkin porridge 22, taxi 18. You can transfer it after you recover." At the time, she thought it was only an awkward joke, but afterward he really did remind her to send the money. She transferred 40 yuan and added a smiling sticker to ease the embarrassment. He replied with a green check mark and the words, "Received."
Near the end of the meal, a server brought out a small cake. It was the restaurant's free birthday service, something Muran had noted when she made the reservation. A pink candle stood on the cake, the tiny flame trembling in the sound of rain. For a moment she felt genuinely happy. She folded her hands and made a wish. Si-wan looked at the cake and said, "Good thing it's free. A cake like this would be at least $35 outside." She opened her eyes. The wish had not even taken shape before it scattered like candle smoke. When it was time to pay, Muran reached for her phone. Si-wan was faster. He scanned the code, then immediately sent the split through WeChat. "You pay 52.5, I pay 54.5 because I ate 2 extra slices of meat. The free cake doesn't count." The message appeared on the screen with its cold little numbers. She looked at him and suddenly asked, "Si-wan, do you remember what day it is?" He looked up, frowned slightly, and then seemed to remember. "Your birthday. I sent you wishes this morning, didn't I?" The morning message had been automatic. "Happy birthday. Save more this year." Muran had read it again and again, persuading herself that he wanted her life to be better. But now, amid the noise of the hot pot restaurant, she heard only a long emptiness. She transferred the money, not missing a single mao, and did not send a sticker. Si-Yuan saw the payment notification and softened a little. Don't overthink it. I'm serious about money because we'll need to buy a home later. In Hangzhou, if you don't calculate carefully, you'll never have a place to stand. She nodded. Outside, the city after rain shone like a giant sheet of glass. She had walked so many streets with him, split cups of milk tea, subway rides, dreams of a small apartment with mint on the balcony. But in his dream, she seemed to be only another item to control. Before leaving the restaurant, she blew out the candle that had almost burned to the end. The faint smell of scorched wax lingered. She thought that perhaps some kinds of love did not end because of betrayal. They simply went out, little by little, after being weighed too many times.
Chapter 2. The Spreadsheet of Love. The next morning, Muran woke at 6:30 to the sound of rain tapping on the outdoor air conditioning unit. Her rented room was on the 5th floor of an old building in Gongshu district. The corridor was narrow, the walls flaked with peeling paint, and whenever the north wind passed through, it made a sound like an elderly person sighing. She made herself a cup of hot soy milk and opened her laptop to check the draft packaging design for an osmanthus tea. This project was her chance to move from the support team into the formal creative group. If she passed, her salary would rise and her work contract would become more stable. She meant to spend the whole day adjusting the background color, but the WeChat window kept popping up. Su-Yan sent an Excel file titled Joint Savings Plan 2026. The file had 3 sheets. The first listed their incomes, the second projected expenses after marriage, and the third was labeled Fair Contributions. He had already entered his salary, estimated hers, and even included a year-end bonus she was not sure she would receive. The final line was bolded. Starting next month, Su Muran should transfer 4,200 yuan per month into the joint savings account. Chen Si-Yan will transfer 5,600 yuan per month. Dating expenses should be reduced to no more than 300 yuan per month. She stared at the number 4,200 for a long time. Her after-tax salary was 7,800. Rent was 2,400. She sent 1,500 home to her mother. Food and transportation cost at least 1,600. If she transferred 4,200, she would have to live on air. She typed, "I can't afford that. My mother still needs monthly checkups for her joints." Su-Yan replied quickly, "I calculated it. You can reduce the money you send home. Auntie lives in Swenchen, where expenses are lower. She doesn't need that much." Muran put down the soy milk, her fingers turning cold. To her, her mother was not a cost line that could be cut. The woman had sold her wedding silver bracelet so Muran could attend art university. She had endured joint pain for years to save on medicine. Yet in Su-Yan's spreadsheet, all of that was only a variable. At noon, she went to work. Yunhei Advertising rented 3 floors in a building overlooking the canal. Downstairs, the ginkgo trees had shed most of their leaves, spreading wet gold over the paving stones. Her co-worker Ah Tong sat beside her eating box lunch while talking about the ring her boyfriend had given her. Muran listened, smiled, and opened her drawing software. On the screen was an ivory-white tea box. She wanted to add a curve resembling the old roof tiles of Wuzhen. Her team leader passed by, looked for a few seconds, and said, "This idea works, but the client wants a sense of family story, not just beauty. Try writing some concept copy." The words family story touched something inside her. She remembered her childhood in Xuanzang, the narrow courtyard and the pomegranate tree. Every autumn, her mother dried tangerine peels on the windowsill. Back then, her father had not yet left. He still sat outside repairing bicycles for neighbors. Later, he followed someone else to Shenzhen. The money he sent home grew thinner, then vanished. Her mother never cried in front of her. She only placed the wedding photo at the bottom of the cabinet and said, "When someone does not know how to keep a promise, do not keep the shape of their leaving in your heart." Muran had once thought she would not be like her mother. She would choose someone practical, stable. But Si-Yuan's practicality seemed to have no room for tenderness. That afternoon, Si-Yuan came to pick her up from the company. He wore a gray overcoat and held 2 cups of coffee. The sight softened Muran at once. After all, he remembered that she liked a low-sugar latte. But when he handed her the cup, he said, "The shop had a buy-one-get-one deal. Yours is 16. Ah Tong, standing behind the reception counter, nearly choked on her water. Heat rushed into Muran's face. She took the coffee, opened her phone, and transferred 16 yuan. Seeing her silence, Si-Yuan explained, "It's not that I begrudge you money, it's principle. One person shouldn't always pay." On the way home, they walked across a bridge. Below, tour boats glowed red, scattering streaks of light over the water.
Si Yuan talked about an apartment he had been looking at in Linping. The down payment would require 200,000. His parents could help with half, and the rest would come from the two of them. He said that if they married, she should sign an expense agreement to avoid emotional spending. Muran asked quietly, "Whose name will be on the property?" He answered almost without thinking, "Of course mine. My parents are contributing more, but you'll live there. It's the same." She stopped in the middle of the bridge. The wind pulled damp strands of hair against her cheek. "I contribute money, but my name won't be on it?" Si Yuan frowned. "Don't be so materialistic. I'm talking about a long-term future. Names don't matter if we trust each other." Muran suddenly gave a very soft laugh. It was the first time she had ever heard him say a name did not matter. When splitting a cup of coffee, he remembered each yuan. When splitting a home, he told her not to calculate. That night, Muran did not go back to her room right away. She went down to the subway and rode in the opposite direction to the edge of West Lake. The rain had stopped, and mist lay over the willows. She opened the Excel file again and scrolled to the bottom. In a small cell, Si Yuan had written a note. After marriage, limit unnecessary cosmetics. Gifts for the wife's family should not exceed 800 yuan per year. She turned off the screen. In the dark, she heard her mother's voice through an incoming call. "Ron, was your birthday happy yesterday?" Looking at the black, smooth lake, Muran lied. "Very happy, Mom. I had hot pot and there was cake." Her mother laughed, the sound warm like an old charcoal stove. "That's good, but remember, a good meal is not good because there are many dishes. It is good because the person sitting with you makes you feel worthy of being cherished." Muran lowered her head. The words were like a needle sewing together cloth already torn inside her, but the stitching hurt so much she could not speak. She said goodbye, ended the call, and stood by the lake for a long time. The city lights trembled in the water, unsteady, like the future she had once believed was certain.
Chapter 3. The Jade Bracelet on Heifang Street. That weekend, Si Yuan took Muran to Heifang Street to meet his mother, Mrs. Chen. It was the first formal conversation between the families about marriage. Mrs. Chen was from Suzhou. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp. She wore an almond-colored wool coat, a jade pendant at her neck, and carried a paper bag from a famous pastry shop. The moment she saw Muran, she smiled and said, "You're thinner in person than in your photos. Too thin makes childbirth difficult." The greeting caught Muran off guard, but she still called her auntie politely. They entered an old-style tea house. The private room had a window overlooking black-tiled rooftops, and the scent of Longjing tea spread through the air. Mrs. Chen asked about her hometown, her work, her monthly salary, and her mother's health. Muran answered each question, feeling as if she were being interviewed for a loan. When Mrs. Chen heard that Muran's father had left home years earlier, she slowly set down her teacup. A single-parent family is not a huge problem, but later the bride's side must not depend too much on the groom's side. Our Si Yuan has been thrifty since childhood. He cannot stand wasteful people. Si Yuan sat beside her, did not object, and even nodded as if confirming the statement. After tea, Mrs. Chen led them to a small jewelry shop. She said she wanted to look at a first meeting gift. Muran thought she intended to buy something symbolic, and her heart warmed a little. The salesperson brought out several jade bracelets, their green glow soft as spring water. Mrs. Chen chose a small one and tried it on Muran's wrist. The bracelet was tight, it scraped over her knuckle and hurt, but she did not make a sound. Mrs. Chen looked at it for a while and said, "This color looks acceptable on your skin. How much?" The seller quoted 8,800 yuan. Si Yuan immediately frowned. "Mom, a first meeting gift doesn't need to be that expensive. Muran isn't someone who values appearances." Muran looked at him. It was true that she did not need an 8,800 yuan bracelet, but she wanted him not to speak for her by lowering the price of respect. Mrs. Chen also found it expensive. She smiled at the seller. "Do you have one around 2,000? It's only for good luck." The seller changed to another tray. The cheaper bracelet had cloudy veins, and its rim was unevenly polished. Mrs. Chen placed it on Muran's hand and was about to nod when Si Yuan leaned over and whispered something to his mother. Mrs. Chen looked at Muran and asked, "How about this? I give you this bracelet, but after the wedding, you two record it into your joint fund. After all, a gift is also an asset of the small family." Muran felt her wrist grow heavy. A gift had turned into a debt before it even became a gift. She removed the bracelet, placed it back on the tray, and smiled. "Auntie, I'm not used to wearing jade. I would feel bad if I broke it. Please keep the money for Si Yuan's apartment."
Mrs. Chen was taken aback for a moment, then smiled politely. What a sensible girl. Si Yuan exhaled in relief, as if he had just prevented a financial leak.
Outside the shop, the old street was crowded. The scent of scallion pancakes rose from a stall, and red lanterns swayed under the eaves. Si Yuan bought 3 pancakes, handed one to his mother, kept one for himself, and then looked at Muran. Do you want one? If you do, transfer 5 yuan yourself. My mother is treating me. Mrs. Chen laughed. He's been like this since he was little. Very clear. A woman who marries should know how to value a man who doesn't squander money. Muran suddenly was no longer hungry. She shook her head. In the afternoon, they visited the model apartment in Linping. The agent introduced the living room, the balcony, and the nearby schools. Si Yuan talked with his mother about the loan plan, interest rates, and how after marriage, Muran should keep working until the 8th month of pregnancy, so contributions would not be interrupted. Mrs. Chen asked, how much dowry support can the bride's family provide? Si Yuan looked at Muran. She answered slowly, my family does not have much. My mother only has a little retirement savings. Mrs. Chen sighed very lightly, just loud enough for Muran to hear. Then after marriage, you must be good. Don't let Si Yuan suffer. In the bright model apartment, Muran looked at the open kitchen with its white stone counter. She had once imagined herself making lotus root soup in a kitchen like that, while Si Yuan washed vegetables behind her, and they argued about what color curtains to hang. But the image in front of her now was mother and son calculating above her head, salary, body, dowry, holiday gift expenses. She suddenly understood that some houses came with invisible walls before they were even bought. Once a person entered, there would be no way out. That evening, Si Yuan sent his mother back to the hotel and then asked Muran to talk. He looked displeased. You embarrassed my mother today. It was just a bracelet. Refusing it like that made the seller think my family was cheap. Muran looked at him. So you wanted me to accept it and then repay it into the joint fund later? He said, that's the reasonable way. If a gift is too expensive, one side shouldn't bear it all. She smiled. If gifts have to be split, how do we split affection? He was quiet for a moment, then said, you're being emotional again. Muran stopped arguing. She called a car back to her rented room. On the way, she took out her design draft. The corner of the paper had curled from rainwater, and no matter how she smoothed it, it would not lie flat. Her phone vibrated. Si Yuan sent a detailed list. Tea, taxi, scallion pancake. He suggested she transfer her share, 132 yuan. At the bottom he added, your attitude today hurt me, but the expenses should still be clear. She looked at that line and suddenly felt light. Not light because it no longer hurt, but because something in her heart had dropped to the bottom and was no longer hanging in the air. She transferred the money, and for the first time she did not reply further. That night, rain fell again. Muran sat at her desk, opened the design file, and wrote the product copy. A gift has meaning only when the giver does not place a scale beneath it. After typing it, she stared at the sentence for a long time. Perhaps she was not writing only for the client.
Chapter 4. The Man Who Returned the Umbrella. The Osmanthus Tea Project had a presentation in Shanghai. Muran and her team leader took the high-speed train from Hangzhou at 7 in the morning. Hangzhou East Station was packed, travelers pulling suitcases past one another like water in a current. She held a tube of drawings in one hand and a cup of coffee she had bought herself in the other. Su Yan messaged early. Business trips are reimbursed by the company. Remember to get receipts. Don't buy random gifts. She read it and did not reply. Since Heifeng Street, a layer of mist had settled between them. He still sent messages, still sent spreadsheets, but she had begun to look at them the way she looked at advertising emails. In Shanghai, rain poured down. The presentation was held in a renovated old building in Jing'an. The client was an old tea brand named Wang Chun Hall, which wanted to launch a product line for younger customers while keeping its family spirit. Their representative, Lu Jinghang, arrived a few minutes late. He was about 32, tall, wearing an understated navy suit and carrying a packet of documents marked densely with notes. Unlike clients who usually said only, make it prettier, he asked specific questions about the visual story and why Muran had chosen the curve of a roof tile instead of a floral pattern. At first, Muran was tense, but the more she spoke, her fear faded. She talked about the courtyard home in Xuancheng, about her mother drying tangerine peel, about the feeling that a box of tea was not only for drinking, but for remembering a place where someone waited for you to come back. The meeting room went quiet.
Lu Jinghong looked at the design sample and then said, "I like the line about not placing a scale underneath, but it is a little painful. Can we let that pain become warmer?" The question made her pause. He did not deny her feeling, he only asked it to find shelter. The meeting went better than expected. Her team leader patted her shoulder and said that if the client approved the concept, she would receive a separate bonus. Muran let out a breath. When they came out of the building, rain was still pouring. She opened her bag and realized she had left her umbrella in the meeting room. Her team leader had to meet another partner and told her to go back first. Muran stood beneath the eaves, wondering whether to run to the station. Just then, a black umbrella moved over her head. Lu Jinghong stood beside her, holding her pale yellow floral umbrella. "Miss Su, you left this behind." She took it and thanked him several times. He said, "Shanghai rain is not kind to people in a hurry. Let me walk you to the main road to call a car." The two walked side by side through a stone-paved alley. Rain splashed up against their trouser hems. Lu Jinghong did not say much, nor did he ask anything private. At the main road, he hailed a taxi for her and handed her a business card. "For the design, I will send feedback through your company. As for the story behind the tea box, I hope you keep its truest part." Muran held the card and saw his name printed in gray ink, simple and steady.
On the train back to Hangzhou, she looked at the card for a while and tucked it into her notebook. Siwon called to ask whether she had eaten dinner. She said she had just bought a boxed meal on the train. He immediately asked, "How much? Will the company reimburse it? High-speed train meals are expensive. Next time, bring bread." She looked out the window as the city retreated into long streaks of light. For the first time, she did not want to explain. "I'm tired. We'll talk when I get back." He was silent, then his voice cooled. "You've changed lately. Is someone at work influencing you?" She laughed softly. A man had returned her umbrella in the rain and had never asked how much her coffee cost, yet Siwon turned him into an influence. The time Siwon hurt her, he called principle. She said, "No one is influencing me. I'm just thinking." Siwon answered, "Think less. Women who think too much are easily led by emotion." The train cut through the rain. Muran turned off her phone and leaned her forehead against the cold window. She remembered Lu Jinghong's eyes while listening to her presentation, attentive, not judging, not interrupting. That kindness was small, but for her now it was like a light at a far pier. She was not thinking of anything else. She had only suddenly realized that there truly were people in the world who did not turn every act of care into a debt. When she reached her room, she received an email from Wang Chunhal. Lu Jinghong had sent 2 pages of feedback, each point clear. At the end, he wrote, "Your design has memory. I hope you do not sand it flat simply to please the market." Muran read the sentence and felt her throat tighten. She had sanded herself flat for too long, before clients, before rent, before Siwon's spreadsheets. She opened the design file, softened the curve of the roof, and added a small figure standing beneath the eaves. Beside that figure was a yellow umbrella. At midnight, Siwon sent a message. "Come to my house for dinner this weekend. My mother wants to discuss the bride gift. I've made the most economical plan. Cooperate." Muran looked at the word cooperate, her fingers resting on the keyboard for a long time. In the end, she only replied, "All right, I also have something to say." After the message was sent, her heart no longer trembled the way it used to. Perhaps courage was not a sudden storm, but drops of rain falling long enough for a rotten wall to collapse on its own.
Chapter 5. Dinner at the Chen family home. Siwon's parents lived in Suzhou, in a clean apartment complex near Jinji Lake. Muran arrived on Saturday afternoon, carrying a box of lotus seed pastries she had bought in Hangzhou. She had chosen a moderate kind, not cheap enough to be rude, not expensive enough to make Siwon frown. But when he saw the receipt in the bag, his first words were still, "180? Online with a coupon, it's 139. She zipped the bag closed and replied calmly, "It's a gift for your parents. I paid for it myself. There is no need to put it in the spreadsheet." The word spreadsheet displeased him, so the elevator arrived, so he said nothing more. Mrs. Chen opened the door with a smile on her face and an assessing look in her eyes. Mr. Chen sat in the living room watching financial news and nodded when he saw her. Dinner included steamed fish, sweet and sour ribs, and lotus root soup. Mrs. Chen kept placing food in her son's bowl and only occasionally told Muran to eat more. Halfway through the meal, she set down her chopsticks and opened a small notebook. "Today we'll discuss the wedding. Our family is not old-fashioned. Everything can be simple. The bride gift will be 88,000 for good luck, and after the wedding, you can bring it back for the 2 of you as starting capital. Wedding banquet costs will be divided according to guests from each side. The bride's family pays for their guests. Jewelry does not need to be excessive. The apartment will be under Siyuan's name because the first payment comes from us. Do you have any opinions? Muran looked at the notebook. Mrs. Chen's handwriting was neat, each item written as a bullet point. She asked, if the bride gift is brought back as starting capital, will that capital be under both names or in Siyuan's account? Mrs. Chen smiled. Girls are easily soft-hearted toward their own families when they hold money. Siyuan works in finance. He will manage it better. Siyuan added, don't think my mother looks down on you. This is division according to ability. Mr. Chen finally looked away from the television. Muran, your family situation is special. We understand that. But marriage is not only love. There must be rules. Muran nodded. She set down her bowl, placed both hands on her knees, and spoke in a clear, level voice. I also believe marriage needs rules. The first rule is respect. I can endure hardship with someone I love. I can rent, save, and pay debt together, but I cannot contribute to a home without my name on it. I cannot turn my mother's retirement money into capital managed by someone else. And I cannot let every meal and every cup of coffee become a receipt proving who lost more and who gained more. The room went silent. Mrs. Chen set her cup down heavily. Are you saying our family is stingy? Siyuan's face flushed. Muran, calm down. Don't go too far in front of my parents. She turned to him. For 2 years she had been calm too many times. Calm when he split the cost of porridge in the hospital. Calm when he bargained over a first meeting bracelet. Calm when he calculated the holiday gifts for her mother. Each time she was calm, she thought she was protecting love. It turned out she was only helping someone else become used to hurting her.
She took out her phone, opened the photo folder, and pulled up a long list of receipts Sion had sent over the years. You say clarity is fairness. Then today, I will also be clear. In 2 years, I have never asked you to pay for me. The amounts you sent, I repaid in full. But the things I gave that were not in the spreadsheet, the nights I helped revise your thesis, the times I waited in line to buy medicine for your father, the days I traveled from Hangzhou to Suzhou only because you said you were tired, the words I swallowed so you could feel right. If our marriage can recognize only what comes with a receipt, then I am not rich enough to marry you. Sion shot to his feet. You make it sound like I used you. I saved money for our future. Muran looked at him and suddenly felt that the person before her was both familiar and far away. Your future has an apartment, a savings account, spending rules. But does it have me? Or does it only have a woman who transfers money on time, has children, does not bother your parents, and does not send too much to her own mother? Mrs. Chen's voice turned cold. If you already think of our family that way, then the wedding can wait. Muran stood, bowed her head, and said, I apologize for spoiling the meal, but there is no need to wait. Sion and I stop here. Sion froze. Perhaps he had imagined she would get angry, cry, and need him to coax her. He had never imagined she would speak of breaking up in his family home, in front of his parents, in a voice as calm as signing a document. She picked up her bag and walked to the door. Sion followed her into the corridor and grabbed her wrist. Don't be childish. We've been together for 2 years. You're breaking up over a few money issues? Her wrist hurt, reminded her of the tight jade bracelet. She pulled his hand away. It is not because of money. It is because money is all you see. The elevator descended very slowly. In the narrow space, Muran heard her own heart pounding. When the doors opened, she stepped out, and a cold wind rushed through the lobby. Suzhou that night had a fine drizzle. She did not call a car immediately. Instead, she stood beneath the eaves and took a deep breath. For the first time in months, she felt she no longer needed permission from anyone to be sad, and she no longer needed a transfer to prove she was reasonable. Her phone kept vibrating. Sion's name appeared and disappeared. She did not answer. On the night train back to Hangzhou, Muran looked at the empty seat beside her. 2 years of love, it turned out, could fit inside one canvas bag, a few train tickets, a scarf he had once given her during a sale, and countless receipts. She opened the Notes app and wrote one sentence. Today, I repaid my last debt, the apology I owed myself for not leaving sooner. Then she turned off the phone and closed her eyes. Outside, the rails stretched through the rain like a new seam, painful but closing.
Chapter 6. A Room Without Debt Reminders. After the breakup, the city did not immediately become beautiful. Hongju still had traffic at rush hour.
Her rented room was still cold, projects still had deadlines, and rent still arrived on schedule. But Muran's room had a strange change. Her phone no longer vibrated constantly because of spreadsheets. She no longer opened her eyes to messages saying, "You still owe 12 yuan from yesterday." She no longer weighed every sentence to avoid being called emotional. At first, the quiet made her feel empty. On the third day, she realized it was not emptiness, it was space to breathe. Yuan did not disappear at once. He called, messaged, and emailed. At first he was angry. "You'll regret this. Men like me are hard to find now." Then he softened. "I know I'm a little rigid, but only responsible men calculate." Then he sent a new spreadsheet titled Reconciliation Plan, in which he proposed reducing her contribution to 3,800 yuan, letting her keep half the bride gift, and considering, according to the situation, future gifts for her mother. Muran read the words, "considering according to the situation," and laughed until her eyes stung. To him, affection was an item that could be adjusted, but never a basic right. She blocked him after one final message. "Yuan, I do not need a plan, I need my life." After pressing block, she sat motionless for a few minutes. Then she stood, mopped the floor, washed her clothes, and cooked a pot of pumpkin porridge. The porridge bubbled on the small electric stove. The sweet smell of pumpkins spread through the room, reminding her of the hospital. She ladled herself a full bowl, added scallion, and ate slowly. This bowl of porridge came with no receipt attached. It was hot, soft, and hers. Work became busy. Wangchun Hall accepted her proposal and wanted her to participate more deeply in the Shanghai launch campaign. Her team leader unexpectedly recommended her as the lead designer. Muran knew this opportunity did not come merely from luck. She had stayed up many nights refining each line and placed into that tea box the memories she had hidden for years. When the contract was signed, she received a message from Lu Jinghong. "Congratulations, Miss Su. The story has found its shelter." She looked at the message, smiled, and replied, "Thank you, Mr. Lu, for giving it a chance." Lu Jinghong did not send unnecessary words. Whenever they communicated, he talked about the project, paper color, shooting schedule. Yet his respect lived in the details. He always sent materials before meetings, always asked her opinion before changing the design, always thanked her for the specific things she had done. Once, when she sent a revision at 2 in the morning, he replied the next day, "You worked hard, but next time there is no need to answer outside work hours. Health is also a cost of creativity." Muran read that sentence and felt a small tremor in her heart. It had been a long time since anyone told her that her own weariness deserved to be counted. One evening, near the end of the month, her mother called to say her knee pain had worsened, and the county hospital suggested a checkup in Hangzhou. Muran immediately made an appointment and booked a bus ticket for her. In the past, this would have worried her, not only because of money, but because she would have had to explain to Yuan why she was sending her mother extra. Now she simply opened the banking app, transferred money, and texted her mother, "Come, I'll meet you at the station." There was no one beside her saying unnecessary expense. She suddenly understood that freedom was not always something grand. Sometimes freedom was simply being able to care for someone you loved without asking permission from a spreadsheet. Her mother arrived in Hangzhou on a misty morning. She wore an old padded coat and carried a cloth bag filled with tangerines and a jar of homemade bean sauce. When she saw her daughter, she smiled, the wrinkles near her eyes deeper than before. Muran hugged her and realized how small her mother's shoulders had become. On the way back to the room, her mother asked whether Yuan was busy and why he had not come. Muran was silent for a moment, then said, "We broke up." Her mother did not immediately ask why. She only placed her hand over the back of Muran's and stroked it gently. "Does it hurt?" That question made Muran burst into tears. Not why, not do you regret it, but does it hurt? She nodded like a child. Her mother sighed. "Of course it hurts. Pulling a thorn out of flesh hurts too. But if you leave it there too long, the wound worsens." On the highway into the city, tall buildings appeared through the mist. Muran leaned against her mother's shoulder and for the first time cried out the grievances she had stored away. The results of her mother's exam were not too bad. She only needed steady treatment. Muran took her to eat lanzhou beef noodles near the hospital. Her mother looked at the prices on the wall and chose the smallest bowl. Muran ordered 2 large bowls, extra beef, extra egg. Her mother scolded her for spending recklessly. Muran smiled. "My treat, Mom. No bill splitting." Her mother did not understand the joke, but seeing her daughter smile, she smiled too. That night, her mother slept on the bed while Muran spread a mattress on the floor. Light from the corridor slipped through the gap under the door. Her mother suddenly said, "Ran,
I do not want you to marry a rich man. I only hope you marry someone who is happy when you eat one more bite of meat, not someone who thinks he has lost something." Muran lay in the dark, tears spilling again, but this time there was no despair. She knew she had left a cold place. Even if spring had not yet arrived, at least she was no longer standing under the eaves of someone who offered shelter from the rain and then charged her for the umbrella.
Chapter 7. Beneath the Eaves of Wangchun Hall. The launch campaign for Wangchun Hall required Muran to stay in Shanghai for half a month. The company arranged a small serviced apartment for her near Fuzhou Road. From the window she could see an old bookstore, a noodle shop, and hurried streams of pedestrians. Shanghai was different from Hangzhou. It was not gentle like a lake. It was sharp like a bright edge under the lights. In the first few days, she missed her rented room and her mother, but work carried her forward. She and the team shot photos in an old house, building scenes of a tea table, eaves, and a figure waiting in the rain. Lu Jinghang was on set most of the time. He was not like executives who only stood and pointed. When staff carried boxes of props, he rolled up his sleeves and helped. When the stylist struggled with a silk scarf, he waited at a distance instead of rushing her. Once, noon, the whole group ate boxed lunches. Muran opened hers and saw eggplant, a food to which she had a mild allergy. She was about to push it aside when Lu Jinghang noticed and asked his assistant to exchange it for another box. She was surprised. "How did you know?" He said, "At the last meeting, you ordered noodles without eggplant. I remembered because our company once had an eggplant-flavored product that failed." He explained it through work, but she still felt a soft string move inside her. Once, rain delayed the shoot. Muran sat under the eaves of the old house, reviewing photos, and Lu Jinghang brought her a cup of hot tea. "This will not be counted as a project expense," he said, so seriously that she laughed. He laughed too, very lightly. Muran did not know where he had heard about her breakup, perhaps from Ah Tom accidentally saying too much in the group chat, but he did not ask and did not show pity. That tact felt her safer than any words of comfort. That afternoon, the rain went on and on. The two stood beneath the eaves of the old house, facing a stone courtyard slick with water. Lu Jinghang told her that Wangchun Hall had begun as a small tea stall run by his grandmother in Suzhou, then later moved to Shanghai. His grandmother died when he was 17, leaving behind one sentence: "Whether tea is expensive or cheap does not matter. What matters is whether the person drinking it feels properly welcomed." He said that when his father expanded the company, he had once wanted to cut the traditional tea lines because the profit was low. Lu Jinghang opposed and nearly left the family. Some things are losses when measured in money, but if you abandon them, you become poor in another way. Muran listened quietly. The sentence stood opposite everything Si Yon had ever said. She asked, "Aren't you afraid people will call you unrealistic?" Lu Jinghang watched the rain. Being realistic does not mean being cold. A business needs profit, and a family needs money. But if money becomes the reason to think less of people, that is not realism, it is laziness in love. Muran lowered her head and saw her reflection distorted in a puddle. She had once thought love required patient endurance, required proving she was not demanding. Now she was beginning to understand that love also needed boundaries. If someone was kind only when kindness cost nothing, that kindness was as thin as paper in rain.
On launch day, the tea box called Rain Eaves was displayed in the Jing'an flagship store. Muran's design kept the ivory color, the curved roofline, the small figure under the eaves, and the yellow umbrella. Many customers came to take photos. A well-known blogger wrote that the tea box looked like a letter to someone who still has a place to return to. The post spread quickly, and orders rose. Her team leader called her thrilled and said the company had decided to promote her to full lead designer. That night, Wangchun Hall held a small celebration. Muran wore a simple black dress and tied her hair low. Lu Jinghang raised a glass to congratulate her in front of everyone. "Thank you, Miss Su, for giving this product a soul." She blushed but did not avoid his eyes. After the party, he walked her out to call a car. Shanghai's streets were wet after the rain, neon reflections flowing like colored rivers. "Miss Su," he said, "after this campaign, we would like to sign a long-term collaboration contract with you, through your company if necessary. I do not want you to feel private pressure." Muran looked at him and suddenly understood that he was carefully keeping distance so she would not feel awkward. She said, "I see it as an opportunity, not pressure." He nodded. Then he took a small box from his coat pocket. "A thank you gift from the project. It is not jewelry, you can accept it as the designer." Inside the box was a seal engraved with her name, Su Muran, 4 soft seal script characters. Attached was an official invoice under the name of Wangchun Hall. He said, "I know you may be sensitive about gifts, So this gift has been recorded as a design expense. It creates no personal debt. Muran stared, then laughed. After laughing for a while, her eyes stung. He did not know her whole story, yet he respected her wound enough to find a way not to press hard against it. She accepted the seal and said, "Thank you. This is the first time I've seen an invoice that doesn't feel cold." Lu Jinghang looked at her, his gaze softening. An invoice records only the price. The person who gives decides whether it is cold or warm. Her car arrived. Before getting in, Muran looked back at the store's eaves. Yellow light fell on the brick floor, like a place where a person could take shelter from rain. She was not in a hurry to call it love, but she knew her heart, closed for many days, had opened a very narrow crack.
Chapter 8. Messages from the Past. The success of Rain Eves was unexpected. Muran's name appeared in a company interview, though only in a few lines. Coworkers congratulated her, her team leader gave her more projects, and the bonus arrived in her account on a sunny morning. She prepaid 3 months of rent, bought her mother a knee massager, and rewarded herself with a wine-red coat. Standing before the mirror in the shop, she hesitated because it was not cheap. Then she thought, she had once paid 52.5 yuan for an unhappy birthday meal, so why could she not pay for a coat that made her feel alive again? She scanned the code and felt no guilt. Around the same time, Sion found a way to contact her through her work email. The subject line was, "Need to discuss shared assets." Muran opened it and discovered that, according to him, shared assets meant items bought during their relationship, a mini projector for which he had contributed 70%, a bookshelf she had paid for in full but that had stayed at his place for 3 months, and a supermarket membership card with remaining points. He listed each item and proposed meeting to settle accounts. After reading it, she was not as angry as before. She was simply tired. Some people missed memories after a breakup. Sion missed reward points. She replied briefly, "Send a reasonable list and I will transfer what needs to be transferred. No meeting." He answered at once, "You're so cold. I only want to see you." Then he added, "My mother was hospitalized because of the stress from us. You shouldn't avoid responsibility." Muran looked at the screen and felt her heart sink for a beat. She did not want anyone to fall ill because of her, but she also knew that if the cord of responsibility were tied around her neck, she would be pulled back into the old room. She typed, "I hope Auntie recovers soon, but my decision to break up is not something anyone's medical chart can change." That night, Sion stood beneath her building. Aton called ahead because she had seen him at the gate. Muran went downstairs but did not invite him up. He was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and a wrinkled overcoat. In his hand was a bag of lotus seed pastries. "I bought the kind you once brought to my house." His voice was rough. "I know my mother went too far that day. I did too. Muran, I can change." She stood at a distance from him. The night wind passed through the leafless trees. "What will you change?" He hurriedly took out his phone and opened a new spreadsheet. "I deleted the limit on gifts to the bride's family. Your name can be added to the apartment if you contribute at least 30%. After marriage, I won't require you to report every expense, only expenses over 500 yuan. For dating costs, I can pay 60%. He spoke quickly, like presenting an improved product.
After listening, Muran felt more sadness than anger. "Siwan, you still don't understand. I did not leave because the ratio was 60-40 or 50-50. I left because every time I needed to be loved, you gave me terms." He clenched the bag of pastries. "But living together requires terms, otherwise there is chaos." She nodded. "Yes, life together needs agreements, but agreements should be born from trust, not from fear of losing out. You were afraid of losing out even with the woman you said you wanted to marry. Beside you, I had to prove every day that I was not taking more than my share. I am tired." Siwan's eyes reddened. "Is it because of Lu Jinhang? He has money, so now you think I'm petty?" Muran frowned. "Do not drag someone else into this. Before I met him, I had already hurt enough." But Siwan seemed to have found an excuse and raised his voice. "He gave you a seal, took you to Shanghai. You think I don't know? Rich men spend a little money to buy emotion, and when I save money it becomes a crime?" The words were like a stone thrown into a lake that had just grown calm. Muran looked at the man who had once been her future, and finally understood that he was not only careful with money, he was sparing even in his ability to recognize another person's pain. She said, "Saving money is not wrong, but you used thrift to cover selfishness, then asked me to be grateful. That is the problem." The building security guard walked by and looked at them. Siwan lowered his voice. "I don't want to break up. 2 years can't just be thrown away." Muran replied, 2 years are not chains, they are only time. Some people use 2 years to learn how to love. Some use 2 years to learn how to endure. I have graduated."
She turned and went inside. Siwan called her name behind her, but she did not stop. Back in her room, she leaned against the door, her hands still shaking, not because she still loved him, but because cutting off a habit always hurt like removing a bandage from a wound. She opened her messages and saw that Lu Jinhong had sent tomorrow's meeting schedule, along with one line. I heard from Ah Tong that someone from your past came to see you. If you need legal support or security, I can introduce suitable people. If you only need quiet, I will not ask. Muran looked at that line for a long time. Not asking was also a way of standing beside someone. She replied, "Thank you, I'm all right, meeting tomorrow as planned." He answered, "All right, good night, Miss Sue." Just that. He did not take advantage of weakness, did not step into the crack. She put down the phone and drew the curtains. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. Drops still clung to the glass, but the sky behind them was growing lighter.
Chapter 9. Mother and the Old City. In early spring, Muran took her mother back to Xuancheng to visit her grandfather's grave. She asked for 3 days off and brought the engraved seal and several boxes of Rain Eve's tea for relatives. Xuancheng was smaller than Hangzhou, its pace slower. In the morning it smelled of baked cakes and kitchen smoke. Her mother's old house sat in a cement-paved alley. The pomegranate tree in the courtyard had aged. Its branches were thin and bare, but new buds had begun to show. Muran opened the gate, heard the hinges creak, and suddenly she felt she had returned to a time very far away. Her mother, Sulan, swept the courtyard and aired the quilts. Neighbors came by and asked about Muran's love life. Sulan only smiled. She's still young. Let her focus on work first. No one knew that a breakup had just passed through her life, or if they did know, they treated it as talk over tea. In a small town, an unmarried woman of 26 was already a topic. A woman who broke up with a man who had a home and a stable job became an even more regrettable story. Muran heard an auntie say, "A man who calculates a little can keep a household. Girls shouldn't be too picky." She was about to respond, but her mother set down a basin of vegetables with a firm sound. Calculating with outsiders is clever. Calculating so tightly that family cannot breathe is narrow-hearted. The auntie laughed awkwardly and changed the subject. In the afternoon, Muran and her mother went to the cemetery. The hill behind the town was covered in young grass, and the wind smelled of damp earth. Before her grandfather's grave, her mother placed chrysanthemums and quietly wiped the stone marker. Muran remembered that her grandfather had been a carpenter, his hands rough but skillful. He often said a good chair was not good only because of precious wood, but because the maker did not begrudge the effort of smoothing places other people would never see. Perhaps love was the same. The places no one saw, a question asked at the right time, a silence that allowed the other person to cry, a meal served without calculations, determined if it could last. On the way back, her mother spoke about her father. For many years, this was a topic mother and daughter had avoided. Sulan said her father had not been bad from the beginning. He had once bought her brown sugar cakes and repaired the roof in the rain, but after his business failed, he began resenting every expense, including her medicine and their child's books. I kept thinking that if I saved more, if I was gentler, he would become the old version of himself again. But when life feels lacking, some people hold tight to their wallets, some also hold tight to their hearts. It took me many years to tell the difference. Muran held her mother's hand. It was calloused and warm. "Do you regret it?" Her mother looked at the dirt road and shook her head. "I regret not leaving earlier, but I do not regret having you." The sentence made Muran's eyes burn. She had once feared repeating her mother's life, so she had chosen someone who seemed stable. But stability, it turned out, did not live in a savings account. It lived in whether a person could keep their kindness when life became difficult. That night, Muran slept in her old room. The wall still held several drawings she had made in high school. A roof, a pomegranate tree, a girl holding an umbrella. She opened her laptop to work. Lu Jihang sent the plan for the summer tea line with a note. "I will come to Hangzhou next week for a meeting with your company. If convenient, I hope to invite you and Auntie to a meal as thanks, because your story began with family." After reading it, Muran's heart beat a little faster. Since Siyuan, she had not introduced another man to her mother. But his invitation was not abrupt. It was like a gentle knock at a door. She told her mother about it. Sulan was mending clothes, and after listening, only asked, "Do you want to meet him?" Muran thought for a while. "I don't know. He's very good, but I'm afraid I might mistake kindness for love simply because I was treated gently." Her mother smiled. "It's good to be afraid of that. Someone who has just come out of the rain easily cherishes the first umbrella. But don't hate every eve because you were once soaked. One meal will not decide your life."
Her mother's words made her feel lighter. She replied to Lu Jihang, "Next week, if the schedule works, I'll invite you to a Hangzhou dinner. My mother also wants to thank you, since the product used her memories." He answered after a few minutes, "It would be my honor, but let me invite you, because I am the one who received the story." She laughed. If it had been Si Yuan, he would have immediately asked how to split the cost. She did not want to keep comparing, but the past was like a bent ruler. It would take time to put down. That night, wind passed through the pomegranate tree, and branches tapped against the window. Muran lay listening to the familiar sound, her heart strangely peaceful. She did not know what the future with Lu Jihang would become. Perhaps only partner, perhaps friend, perhaps something else. But for the first time after the breakup, she did not feel like someone who had failed at love. She was someone who had walked through an old city within herself, picked up the key to her own house, and was ready to open another door when she truly wished to.
Chapter 10. A Meal Without Dividing Portions. The next week, Lu Jingheng came to Hangzhou. The meeting at Yunhe ended at 5 in the afternoon. Ah Tong winked at Muran when she saw him waiting in the lobby with a small paper bag in hand. Muran pretended not to notice, but her ears grew warm. Her mother had been preparing since noon and insisted on cooking several dishes in the rented room because restaurant food lacks human feeling. The small room had been cleaned, the folding table covered with a floral cloth, and on the stove were braised fish, stir-fried greens, lotus root rib soup, and a plate of tangerines from Xuancheng. Lu Jingheng stepped into the room without showing any surprise at the cramped space. He bowed to Su Lan and offered the gift bag, a box of herbal tea for joints and a consultation voucher from a well-known traditional Chinese medicine doctor, which he described as only reference information. Auntie may use it or not, as she chooses. Muran's mother accepted the gift and glanced at her daughter. That look meant this man leaves room for the receiver. No pressure, no display. The meal was more natural than Muran had expected. Her mother asked about Wang Chun Hall, and Lu Jingheng told stories about his grandmother selling tea at the pier, including the times business failed. He did not try to prove he was impressive, nor did he avoid difficult things. When Su Lan placed a large piece of fish in his bowl, he accepted with both hands holding the bowl and thanked her. When Muran stood to get more rice, he stood too and helped pour soup. The small rented room suddenly felt warm, like a true kitchen. After the meal, her mother took out the Rain Aegis tea box and pointed to the figure beneath the Aegis. "Did Ronron draw me here?" Muran smiled. "Not exactly. It is a memory of you." Lu Jingheng said, "Auntie, the product is loved because many people see in it the person they want to return to. Ms. Su's contribution is very significant." Su Han waved a hand. "She has liked drawing since she was little. I only hope she can draw without bowing her head too much." That sentence quieted the air for a moment. Lu Jingheng looked at her and answered seriously, "A creative person should bow to the work, not to being undervalued." Muran lowered her head to pick vegetables, hiding her reddened eyes. Her mother smiled, but her own eyes were damp. She said, "Mr. Lu speaks like someone who has read many books." He smiled. "My grandmother sold tea and made me read Tang poetry so I could name products properly. Reading a lot and understanding are not always the same thing." After dinner, Su Lan deliberately went into the kitchen to wash dishes, leaving the two of them on the small balcony. The balcony was only large enough for 2 pots of mint and a clothesline. Below came the sounds of electric scooters and a vendor selling roasted sweet potatoes. Lu Jingheng leaned on the railing and said, "Thank you for letting me come. The meal was delicious." Muran replied, "My mother likes you, but she likes you because you finished the fish, not because you are a client." He laughed.
After a while, he said, "There is something I want to say, but you have the right to refuse to hear it now." Muran's heart tightened slightly. He looked at her and did not move closer. "I care about you, not only because of your talent. I care about the way you have kept your softness after being treated unfairly. But I know you have just come through a difficult stretch. I do not want to become someone who makes you rush to answer or feel indebted." Wind from the canal passed by, trembling the mint leaves. Muran looked at the man before her. A confession that left her a way out. It moved her and frightened her at the same time. She told the truth. "I have feelings for you, but I'm not sure I'm ready to begin. Sometimes I compare you with my past, and then I dislike myself for comparing." Lu Jingheng nodded. "Then let time do its work. I can wait in a way that does not disturb you. If one day you do not want me to wait, tell me and I will stop." Muran smiled, tears falling without warning. "You always sound as if you were signing a decent contract."
He handed her a tissue without touching her. "Perhaps because I fear unclear words make others uncomfortable, but my feelings are not terms." She took the tissue and wiped her eyes. Inside her, a door opened a little wider. When he left, her mother walked him downstairs. Muran stayed behind to clear the table and found an envelope beneath the plate of tangerines. Money for the meal? She startled and opened it to see a small card. "Thank you for the meal. I do not pay for warmth. I only return my grandmother's ginger tea recipe, hoping Auntie can use it when the weather is cold." Enclosed was a handwritten sheet in beautiful script explaining how to make ginger and red date tea. Muran laughed out loud. Her mother returned to the door and asked what was funny. Muran handed her the card. After reading it, Sulan nodded. A person who knows not to pay for warmth can still be trusted. Muran hugged her mother from behind. Outside the window, Hangzhou lit up. The city was no longer only a place where she struggled alone. It could also be the place where one small meal laid the foundation for new trust.
Chapter 11. The Online Storm. Summer arrived with sudden bursts of rain. Just as Wangchuan Hall's new tea line was preparing to launch, a post appeared online accusing Muran of using a relationship with the heir to take the project. The anonymous account posted photos of Lu Jinghong standing outside her building after the family dinner, along with suggestive remarks about a small-town female designer changing her fate. The post spread quickly through advertising industry groups. Some people did not know the truth, but enjoyed judging. Others envied her success and quietly added fuel to the discussion. Muran read the post in a conference room, her hands turning cold. A tongue trembled with anger. "Who secretly photographed this? This is completely made up." The team leader called Muran in for a conversation, her tone careful. "The company believes in your ability, but the client needs a response. Do you and Mr. Lu have a personal relationship?" The question was not malicious, but it still felt like a small cut. Muran took a deep breath and answered, "There is mutual affection, but the project was signed before anything personal developed. All work exchanges have emails, minutes, and quotations. I am ready to provide them." Not long after, Lu Jinghong called. His voice was calm but heavy. "I am sorry that you were dragged into this because of me." Muran said, "The person at fault is the one spreading false claims." He was silent for a second. "I will let the legal department handle it. But before the company issues a statement, I want to ask your opinion. A statement that is too strong may pull more attention on you. One that is too light may not protect you enough. What do you want?" This was the difference. When Si Yun encountered a problem, he usually decided for her and then said it was for her own good. Lu Jinghong asked what she wanted, even when he had enough power to do everything. Muran straightened her back. "I want to make the project process public. We do not discuss private matters. If they use ability to question me, I will answer with work evidence." He said, "All right, we'll do that." That night, Wangchuan Hall and Yunhei posted a joint statement. They disclosed the bidding timeline, selection minutes, the role of the design team, and stated that they would pursue accountability for the accounts spreading false information. Muran also posted a short note on her personal page. "I am not ashamed of where I came from, and I will not apologize for being recognized. Every project I complete has drafts, sleepless nights, and revisions. If you want to see my ability, please look at the work. If you want to inspect my private life, please stop at the door." The post was not long, but it stood straight. The next day, the anonymous account was found to be connected with a former employee of a competitor. But Muran knew the matter was not that simple. That evening, she received a message from an unknown number. "If you hadn't been so absolute, I wouldn't have had to do this. I only wanted you to see that rich people can't protect you either." She stared at the words, and her whole body chilled. It was C1. He had not posted directly, but he had provided photos and information to someone else. The truth made her ill. 2 years of love had not only turned into receipts, they had also become a tool he used when he could no longer possess her. She took screenshots and sent them to Wangchuan Hall's lawyer and to her company. Then she called the unknown number. Siwan answered and stayed silent. She said, "I have saved the evidence. From now on, all contact goes through lawyers. You once said costs must be clear. Then the cost of damaging another person's reputation should also be clear." Siwan's breathing quickened. "Muran, I was only too angry. I didn't think it would become this serious." She replied, "You never thought. You only calculated." Then she hung up. The following days were difficult. Although the statement had clarified the matter, there were still whispers. Muran walked through the company corridor and heard people lower their voices. She thought she would collapse, but strangely, she did not. Her mother called, worried but steady.
If you did nothing wrong, don't lower your head. I am here. Ah Tong brought her a cup of soy milk every day and refused payment. Lu Jihong sent legal progress updates and carefully kept romantic words out of the moments when she needed focus. The people standing beside her were not loud, but together they were enough to form a wall. A week later, Siwan issued a public apology as part of the settlement, admitting that he had provided false information and private photos. He also compensated Muran and the company for reputational harm. His apology was dry, like the documents he had always liked. After reading it, Muran did not feel triumphant. She only felt that one final chapter had truly closed. That evening, she met Lu Jihong by West Lake. It was where she had once stood after a sad birthday, and where she had once heard her mother say that the person sitting with you should make you feel worthy of being cherished. In summer, green willows hung over the water, tourists passed by, and distant flute music drifted through the air. Lu Jihong stood beside her and asked, "Are you all right?" Muran looked at the lake and nodded. "I used to fear that if I left him, I would lose everything. It turns out that after leaving, I discovered I had more: work, my mother, friends, myself." He said, "And you have the right to have more love if you want it." She turned toward him. The lakeside lights fell into his eyes, gentle as hot tea. Muran was silent for a long time. Then she took the initiative and held out her hand. Lu Jihong looked at her hand, as if making sure she would not regret it, and only then did he take it. His hand was warm, the pressure just right, not pulling, not gripping tightly, only being there. She said, "I want to try, not because you saved me. You did not save me. I walked out myself, but you make the road ahead feel less cold." Lu Jihong squeezed her hand lightly, then let us go slowly. Muran smiled. Wind crossed the lake, breaking the lines of light and joining them again. Some things, once broken, did not need to return to their old shape. They could become another surface of water, still able to reflect the sky.
Chapter 12. The Last Bill. 1 year later, Muran moved to Shanghai. She did not move because of Lu Jihong, although he was there. She accepted a position as creative director at a new studio, collaborating with Wangchun Hall and several cultural brands. The contract was good, the decision-making power was real, and most important, she could choose her own team. On the day she signed the contract, she brought her mother to Shanghai for a visit. Su Lan stood before the office window looking down at the river of traffic and sighed. "Such a big city, but seeing you stand here, I'm not afraid anymore." Muran put an arm around her mother's shoulders. "Neither am I." Her new apartment was near South Shunxi Road. It was not large, but it had a balcony. She planted mint, basil, and a small pomegranate tree her mother brought from Xuansheng. Liu Jinhong often came for dinner, but they kept their own rhythms. Some days he had meetings late into the night, and she did not resent it. Some days she traveled for work, and he helped care for the plants without photographing every watering as proof of effort. They also talked about money, clearly but not coldly. When they ate out, whoever was convenient paid. When they traveled together, they made a budget. Gifts were not priced aloud before the person receiving them. When large expenses came, they discussed them like two people in the same boat, not opponents at a negotiation table. One late winter evening, Liu Jinhong invited Muran to the old Wangchun Hall shop in Suzhou. The shop had been renovated, preserving the wooden eaves and the tea counter from his grandmother's time. Rain fell suddenly, just like the first day they walked under umbrellas in Shanghai. He brewed her a pot of osmanthus tea and placed an envelope on the table. Muran looked at him warily. "This isn't another proper contract, is it?" He laughed. "You could see it that way." Inside the envelope was a life plan, but it was nothing like Suyan's spreadsheet. The first page read, "Things I hope to discuss with you, not demands." Below were sections: the city they wanted to live in, how to care for both families, work boundaries, separate and shared savings, the right to say no, the right to be vulnerable. At the end was one handwritten sentence: "I want to marry you, but only if marriage makes you larger, not smaller." Muran read to that point and her eyes blurred. Liu Jinhong took out a box. Inside was not a large diamond ring, but a slender white gold ring with a tiny umbrella engraved inside. He knelt on one knee, yet his voice remained calm enough to be almost funny. "Su Muran, I love you. I cannot promise that life will have no difficulty, no arguments, no days when we calculate wrong, but I promise that when we must calculate, I will calculate your feelings too. When we must choose, I will not choose the part that benefits me and call it our future. Would you like to try building an Eve with me?" Outside, rain fell on the roof tiles, the steady patter like a heartbeat. Muran looked at the man before her and remembered the girl who once stood in a hot pot restaurant waiting for a birthday wish. She remembered the tight jade bracelet, dinner at the Chen family home, the reputational storm, the nights when she cooked porridge for herself. None of it vanished. It lay inside her like thin scars. But the scars no longer hurt when the weather turned cold. They only reminded her that she had healed. She held out her hand. "I want to, but I have one condition." Lu Jinghong looked up. "Tell me." She smiled through tears. "In the future, if I eat one more bite of meat, you have to be happy." He laughed, and his eyes were red too. "I request that this condition be written into the permanent terms." He put the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly, unlike the jade bracelet from long ago. It did not hurt her wrist or leave the feeling of debt. It simply rested there, light as a promise of companionship. After she said yes, Lu Jinghong handed her a small piece of paper. "This is the real last bill." Muran opened it and saw that it was a receipt for 2 bowls of Lanzhou beef noodles in Hangzhou, from the day he had quietly accompanied her mother to choose medicinal tea. On the back of the receipt were Sulan's words. "Mr. Lu insisted on paying. I repaid him with 2 tangerines. No one owes anyone. Kindness simply goes back and forth." Muran laughed until tears spilled. The receipt was wrinkled and the ink slightly faded, but it was warm as her mother's hand. Their wedding took place in spring and was not too large. Muran's mother wore a deep green qipao and smiled, her cheeks hurt. Ah Tong served as bridesmaid and kept reminding Muran not to cry her makeup away. Her former team leader sent a bouquet with the message, "May you always design your life more beautifully than any draft." Lu Jinghong's parents were reserved at first, but when they saw his seriousness and Muran's steadiness, they learned to respect her. No one mentioned dowry as a test. The 2 families sat together, drank tea, and talked about weather, health, and the small pomegranate tree on the balcony. During the ceremony, Muran did not toss the bouquet right away. She held the microphone and said to the guests, "I once thought love meant finding someone to help me stand against life. Later I understood that first I must not betray myself. The right person does not turn you into an expense and does not make you feel your existence needs to be reimbursed. The right person is not a fairy tale being either. They are simply someone who, when placing a scale on the table, still remembers that the other side is a heart." The room went silent, then burst into applause. Her mother cried. Lu Jinghong held Muran's hand under the lights, his palm warm as a night beside West Lake. At the end of the banquet, rain fell again. Guests left beneath the transparent umbrellas Muran had prepared. She stood under the hotel edges, watching rain fall over Suzhou. Lu Jinghong draped a coat over her shoulders. "Cold?" he asked. She shook her head. "No. I was only thinking that if he had not sent the split bill in the hot pot restaurant that day, perhaps I would have stayed longer." Lu Jinghong listened silently. She continued, "So I should thank that bill. It hurt, but it woke me up." He looked at the curtain of rain. "Then will you keep it?" She smiled. In her wallet, she still kept the small printout of the bill from that birthday meal, not to remember Suyuan, but to remember the moment she began to wake. She took it out, placed it beside the beef noodle receipt her mother had kept, and looked at the 2 pieces of paper side by side, one cold, one warm. Both were the price of different lessons. She folded them and placed them in the tin box that held letters and the seal. Years later, when Muran's studio had become known, she accepted a design project for a fund supporting women leaving controlling relationships. She chose the image of an open eave. Under it, no one stood waiting in advance. There was only one lamp. She wrote the concept line. "Some people give you an umbrella. Some teach you to walk through the rain yourself. What matters is not finding shelter, but knowing you deserve not to be left outside." When she signed her name with the seal Lu Jinghong had given her, she suddenly remembered the girl with the yellow umbrella in her first design. That girl had traveled very far. That evening, when she came home, she found Lu Jinghong in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, clumsily making braised fish according to the recipe her mother had sent. It smelled a little overcooked, and the soup was bland, but he smiled as if he had accomplished something grand. On the table were 2 bowls of rice, a plate of tangerines, and not a single bill. Muran stood in the doorway, her eyes suddenly stinging. He turned and asked, "What is it?" She walked over and hugged him from behind. "Nothing. I just feel this meal is very expensive." He tensed. "Expensive how?" She laughed. "Expensive because I had to pass through so much rain to reach it." On the balcony, the little pomegranate tree had formed its first buds. The city lit up, and rain tapped gently on the glass. In the kitchen, there was the smell of slightly overcooked fish, the sound of boiling water, and the sound of 2 people who loved each other asking whether the other wanted more.
Muran sat down and picked up a large piece of meat. Lu Jingheng immediately pushed the plate toward her. "Eat more." She looked at him and smiled until her eyes curved. If there were a final bill for her life, perhaps it would read, "A heart once measured and divided, now has learned to receive love without feeling in debt."
Hey there! If you enjoy our audio content, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, click subscribe and ring the bell to stay updated with everything Zuzu Audio. Support the channel and join our community today.